Welcome back to the deep dive. So today, we're going to be doing a deep dive on, well, a location, a place, the St. Martin Boardwalk. It's in Philipsburg.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, I've got I guess you could call it like a dossier on it, and it's all from what I can tell, the Boardwalk's own website.
Oh, cool. So like a first-hand account.
Exactly. So it should give us a really good picture of not only what's there, but also like how they want to present themselves.
Yeah,
Like what they're trying to, I guess, trying to emphasize as their like selling point.
sure.
So they describe it as a spot, a vibrant hub. And so just picturing it, it's a mile and a half walkway that runs alongside Great Bay.
Okay.
So already, I mean, that kind of sets a nice scene. And I think just from those couple of like, buzzwords, the lively spot, the vibrant hub, like what does that conjure up for you? Like what are the elements that go into making that kind of atmosphere?
I mean, it really sets a scene of, something that's bustling. And they specifically mention, breathtaking beach views right alongside bustling streets filled with shopping, dining, accommodation, and fun. So that kind of like, that contrast there, it's not just a place to sit and look at the water. It's, there's more going on there.
Right.
There's more to do.
Yeah. And it seems like they're going for a lot of I don't know, like appealing to a lot of different types of people.
Yeah,
Like, families, foodies, shoppers,
exactly.
even like, people who are maybe looking for a place to stay or people who are, I don't know, want to get out on the water. Like there's all these different facets of activity that it sounds like they're trying to, bring in.
Right. And that's something that's always interesting with tourist destinations, right? Like how much are you a specialist versus how much are you trying to, get everyone in the door?
Right. Right.
And when you try to be that kind of hub for everything, you run into the potential problem of, does everything become a little bit mediocre, or can you still make those individual things really good while, trying to cater to everyone?
That's a good point. That's a really good point. I mean, it's definitely a challenge to try to be all things to all people.
Absolutely.
So let's kind of dig into the specifics here. Aside from just strolling along the walkway, they do mention some specific things you can do there. One of them is shopping, and specifically duty-free shops.
Sure.
Now, duty-free shopping in the Caribbean, that's almost like well, it's practically an industry in itself, isn't it?
Oh, yeah.
Why do you think that is? Like, why is duty-free shopping such a, I don't know, like a big draw for people going to the Caribbean?
Well, I think it's a combination of factors, right? Like, you've got this perception of the Caribbean as, kind of a luxury getaway.
Right.
And then, the actual, financial aspect of duty free, you can get, really good prices on certain things like, luxury goods, especially jewelry, watches,
Yeah, yeah.
alcohol, things like that, things that are usually, taxed pretty heavily elsewhere.
Yeah, so you can really get a deal on some things.
Exactly.
So it becomes part of the like vacation experience.
Yeah, exactly. It's part of what you do when you go to the Caribbean.
Right, right. Now, another thing they emphasize, and this is always a good thing in my book, is food and drink. And they mention specifically, they say delicious local eateries. And they even give us a little list of places.
Okay.
Let's see. There's OMG Delicious, Pink Pearl Bar and Restaurant, the Pier Beach Bar and Restaurant, 721 Brews and Bites, Dutch Blonde Beach Bar, and Kahlua Beach Bar and Restaurant.
Okay.
So just from the names alone, like what kind of landscape are we looking at in terms of the food scene there?
But you've got a lot of variety there, right? OMG Delicious kind of has that like fun, maybe more casual vibe. And then, you've got Pink Pearl, and then you've got the Pier, which is probably, a little bit more like a standard beachfront experience.
Yeah.
And then, you've got like 721 Brews and Bites, which sounds very more of that modern gastropub kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
And then, you've got both Dutch Blonde and Kahlua Beach Bar and Restaurant, which definitely suggests those classic Caribbean, beachy vibes,
Right.
drinks,
Yeah.
and some casual food.
Yeah, yeah. And I'm always curious about like, when you go to a place, like what are the local flavors?
Right.
What are the things that are really particular to that area? And in St. Martin, I'm assuming, given its Dutch and French influences, like we're probably looking at a really interesting mix there.
Yeah, I mean, definitely.
Oh,
You would expect to see, some of that Creole influence coming in and maybe some French techniques.
right.
But yeah, I mean, that's always one of the best parts about going somewhere new
Totally, totally.
is seeing what kind of cool food you can find.
Yeah, yeah. They also mention accommodation, and specifically they highlight the Seaview Beach Hotel. So that's right there on the boardwalk.
Okay.
So in terms of the overall experience for a visitor, how do you think that impacts things? Like to have a hotel right there on the boardwalk.
Well, it definitely adds to the convenience factor, right?
Right.
You step out your door and you're right there, on the beach, at the shops, at the restaurants. You don't really need to worry about, transportation to get to the main, attractions of the area.
Right.
But on the other hand, you are kind of right in the midst of it all.
Right.
So if you're looking for something that's a little quieter, a little more off the beaten path, maybe that's not the best choice for you.
That's true. That's true. There's always like a trade-off in
Yeah,
terms of convenience and, tranquility.
absolutely.
So speaking of catering to different needs, they've got the Boardwalk Playground at Gelateria Milano.
Okay,
So this is specifically geared towards families.
sure.
And they've got this playground right next to a gelato shop.
Oh, wow.
So, I'm imagining like parents can sit there, have a gelato, keep an eye on their kids. The kids are, happily playing. Everybody wins.
Yeah, I mean that's a really smart combination, right?
Yeah.
And it's something that a lot of places, maybe don't think about.
Yeah.
Like how do you cater to families in a way that's really gonna, make them want to spend time there?
Right, right.
And I think that's a great example of that. The kids are happy, the parents are happy, everybody's having a good time.
Exactly. And they even play that up in the description. They talk about the opportunity to create lasting family memories.
Oh, wow.
And they call it a must visit.
Yeah,
So, they're really playing up that emotional aspect,
definitely.
of like family vacation and, creating those special moments.
Yeah, for sure.
Now, what about for those who are maybe looking for a little bit more activity or, maybe want to get a taste of the local art scene? They've got a couple of things. They've got the Boardwalk Sports Park,
Okay,
and they have something called the Under SXM Sculptures.
interesting.
So those seem like they would appeal to maybe a slightly different crowd. Like, what kind of value do you think those add to the overall experience?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's great to have, different things to do to cater to different types of people, right?
Right.
So, the sports park, that sounds like something that's a little bit more active.
Yeah.
Maybe for people who aren't just content to stroll along the boardwalk.
Right.
And then the sculptures. It's described as a unique public art installation celebrating local culture. So that's cool. I mean, public art can be a really great way to kind of like spice up a public space,
Right.
and give it a little bit more visual interest.
Yeah.
And also, to kind of like tell a story about the place,
Yeah.
like what's important to the people who live there, what's their history.
Totally. And it's also, I think, public art, it's always good for a photo op.
Oh yeah,
And those can be really, really popular with tourists.
absolutely.
So moving on, they also highlight a couple of landmarks. They have the historic courthouse and Walter Plant Square. So for a place like this, a modern tourist destination like a boardwalk, how important do you think it is for them to kind of like incorporate and highlight those historical elements?
I think it's really important. I think it's really cool when a place can, kind of like weave its history into its present,
Yeah.
and it gives visitors a sense of, that this isn't just some some made up tourist trap.
Right.
Like this place has a real history and a real culture.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it's something that people have been, living in and experiencing for a long time.
It adds a sense of place, right? It's
Yeah.
not just like, interchangeable with any other tourist spot.
Exactly.
Now, in terms of staying connected, they seem to have a pretty active online presence.
Okay.
They've got a blog called the Boardwalk blog.
Okay.
And there are a lot of recent posts. They cover a lot of the things we've already talked about.
Sure.
There's one about the playground.
Yeah.
One about Christmas lights.
Okay.
One about the sports park, the sculptures,
Oh, wow.
Walter Plant Square. So, like, what does that level of activity, recent activity on a blog, what does that tell you about, how they're trying to engage with potential visitors?
I mean, it shows that they're putting in the effort, right?
Yeah.
They're not just, setting up a website and then forgetting about it.
Right.
They're actually using it to communicate with people
Right.
and to give them, up-to-date information.
Yeah, yeah. And it shows, I think, a certain level of, I don't know, like a certain level of sophistication, maybe,
Yeah.
in terms of their approach to, marketing and outreach.
Definitely. And it shows, that they're kind of thinking ahead,
Hmm.
like what are the things that people are going to want to know?
Right.
And how can we make sure that they have that information?
Exactly, exactly. They also have a section called Discover Boardwalk Events, although right now there's nothing listed there. But just the fact that they have that section, I think, is telling. It's almost like a placeholder for future activity.
Yeah, totally.
You
Like
know,
they're planning to have events.
right,
They just, maybe haven't scheduled them yet or haven't updated the site yet.
right, right. But it shows that they're thinking of it as more than just a static collection of businesses.
Yeah.
Like it's a place where things are happening.
Definitely.
Now they've also got some visual content. They've got a couple of photo galleries.
Okay.
One is of the Christmas lights,
Okay.
and one is of the boardwalk sculptures.
Cool.
And I think, in today's world, like visuals are so important,
Oh, yeah.
For attracting visitors.
Absolutely.
So how crucial do you think those kinds of galleries are?
Oh, I think they're hugely important. I mean, people are visual creatures. And, when you're planning a trip, you're looking at pictures of places. You're trying to, get a sense of what it would be like to actually be there.
Yeah, yeah.
And, a good photo gallery can really sell a place.
Totally, totally. So let's get down to some practical information here. They have a section called Cruise Ship Watch,
Okay.
and it gives regular updates on docking schedules.
Sure.
Now, for a place like St. Martin, which, is heavily reliant on cruise tourism, how vital do you think that kind of information is?
Oh, I think it's hugely important for businesses.
Yeah.
Like if you know that, a huge cruise ship is going to be docking on a particular day, you can, staff accordingly. You can make sure you have enough inventory.
Right.
Things like that. So it's really important for them to be able to, to plan and to prepare.
Yeah, yeah. And then on the flip side, for the passengers,
Yeah,
that's valuable information for them too.
absolutely.
Like, what are we going to be in port? What time do we have to be back on the ship?
Totally.
They also have a weather section, which, it seems like a small thing, but having that readily available weather information, that's always appreciated.
Oh, yeah, for sure. I mean, you're on vacation. You want to know, is it going to be sunny? Is it going to rain? Do I need to pack an umbrella?
Exactly, exactly. This is kind of a cool feature. They've got live stream links
Oh, wow.
for a couple of the businesses there. There's one for Tallulah Mangoes and one for Sea Palace.
Cool.
So you can actually get a real-time look at what's going on there. So that's pretty immersive.
It is. It's
Yeah.
a great way to, to kind of like experience the place, even if you're not there.
Yeah, yeah. And then finally, under interesting places, they list a few more local businesses.
Okay.
So this gives us like an even broader picture of the variety that's available.
Yeah.
So there's Cariloja del Sol, flamboyant local gift shop, Javianes,
Cool.
and then a couple of the restaurants that we mentioned before pop up again.
Okay.
So that kind of reinforces this idea of like a diverse ecosystem of businesses there.
Yeah. It's like, some of these places are maybe, they do more than one thing.
Right, right.
So like maybe they've got a shop and they've also got a restaurant,
Right.
so it's just this really interconnected network of businesses.
So having gone through all this information, and kind of like gotten this virtual tour of the St. Martin Boardwalk, I think it's pretty clear that it's a lot more than just like, a place to walk by the sea.
Yeah.
It's really, it seems like it's a hub of activity, and it kind of like acts as a central nervous system for tourism in Philipsburg.
Absolutely. You've got everything there. You've got, the shops, the restaurants, the activities, the history.
Right.
You know, it's all right there.
And so I guess the question that I'm left with is like, for you, given all of this, like what would be the main draw? Like what would make you want to go to the St. Martin Boardwalk? Would it be the, duty-free shopping? Would it be the diverse culinary scene?
Yeah.
Would it be, just like the opportunity to like sit by the water and soak up the atmosphere, or would it be something else entirely? It seems like there's something there for everybody.
Yeah, it really does. And that's always a sign of a good destination, right?
Yeah.
When there's something for everyone.